How amazing is this? Since the year 2000, more than 350 books have been published explaining in detail the falsification of theism, Christianity especially. This has never happened before, ever. Please tell your Christian friends they have a lot of homework to do. They haven't noticed. My name is David Madison, the 4th of February 2020. I'm an ex-clergy atheist, and I have collected these titles into what I call the Cure for Christianity Library, in homage to Mark Twain's famous comment that the best cure for Christianity is reading the Bible. Now, there are a lot more books to help with that. Just type Cure for Christianity Library into Google. There's a lot of cool stuff in these books, hence this series of flash podcasts, Cure for Christianity Knockout Quotes. This is quote number 14. One of the most important books in Jesus studies is On the Historicity of Jesus, Why We Might Have Reason for Doubt by Richard Carrier, one of the top Jesus scholars on the planet. Listen to this stunning comment. Quote, John's Gospel contains long, implausible, never before imagined speeches of Jesus, and yet no Sermon on the Mount, and indeed hardly any moral instructions of any sort, and entirely new characters and events also never heard of before. Nicodemus, Lazarus, Cana. John has run wild with authorial gluttony, freely changing everything and inventing whatever he wants. By modern standards, John is lying, unquote. This goes to the very heart of perhaps Christianity's biggest problem, the unreliability of the Gospels. Most Christians assume that the Gospels are inspired biographies of Jesus. They've been deceived. The Gospels were written anonymously decades after the events described. The titles Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were added later by tradition. The authors, whoever they were, didn't even claim to be eyewitnesses, and they never name their sources. Where did they get their information? We have no clue. By these criteria of history, they fail to deliver. How is history written, after all? Well, for example, William Carter wrote a 810-page biography of Marcel Proust. At the back, we find 110 pages of notes citing the sources, the letters, the diaries, and other books that the author used to write his account. A. Scott Berg wrote a 743-page biography of Woodrow Wilson. He included 38 pages listing sources. These authors spent endless hours in libraries and archives. Nothing like that, nothing at all, not a single scrap exists to verify any of the words and deeds of Jesus. What is more, there is so much fantasy, miracle folklore, and magical thinking in the Gospels. This betrays their origin and nature as theological propaganda. If you read so many of the Gospel episodes in a fairy tale, you would say, that's a fairy tale, not history. Let's get back to Richard Carrier's quote. John has thus run wild, inventing whatever he wants. By modern standards, John is lying. Lying? Is that too strong? Well, it's not hard to come up with examples of preachers and theologians lying, such as lying about what the Gospels really are. The Gospel writers were inventors. If you don't like the word lie, just admit that they wrote Jesus novels. And there is no way at all, to probe behind these novels to discover any nuggets of history that might perchance be there. Any real Jesus is forever lost in this theological fog. Carrier's knockout quote puts us on full alert that the Gospels cannot be trusted.